Hey all, Farmer Dre back at us on the beautiful day here on the farm. I'm out here in the high tunnel, and today I'm going to talk about how much fertilizer does a tomato plant need until full production. So here recently, I've had a lot of people reach out and ask, Dre, how much fertilizer do I got to fertilize my tomato plants? I want to purchase your tomato fertilizer blend, and I don't know how much to put on 10, 12, 15 tomato plants. So today I'm going to get down and dirty into the numbers and the details of how much you fertilize per plant here. I'm going to tell you guys what we do here in a high tunnel. In a high tunnel, we have about 400 tomato plants. I'll tell you guys how much I fertilize then, and then we're going to break it down to each individual tomato plant. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. All the fertilizers you guys are able to find down in the link down in the description box below, or go to farmerdresupply.com. That's where I have my tomato formula fertilizers. We got the Masterblend, we got calcium nitrates and potassium, magnesium sulfate. That's what you guys are able to find. If you guys need any other fertilizers, that's where we have them there. So we got triple 20, we got low acid fertilizers, all kinds of fertilizers that you guys need for your growing your garden or your production cycle. Yeah, so if you guys need any of the fertilizers, go ahead and check down the link in the description. So I'm gonna go ahead and run through my fertilizer program here on the farm. We currently have 4 high tunnels planted of tomatoes. This is my first and earliest planting. Then we got the second planting in tunnel number 3, and then my third planting in this tunnel, and the tunnel on Val's place there. So we got right around 2,000 tomato plants in the ground here on the farm. They're all in high tunnels. We grow them all under covers. We are done growing tomatoes out in the field unless we have some extras, which we do in the greenhouse there, and we just got to plant them just so they won't go to waste. So that's the only time we're going to be planting anything in the field. But for production purposes, and we're purposely planting tomatoes for production in these high tunnels. High tunnels provide a lot of value. First of all, early production, better quality of fruit, higher yield of fruit. Just because in a high tunnel here, they are a growing degree warmer than your outside temperature. So out here in Missouri, southwest Missouri, we're in growing zone 6B. In this high tunnel, naturally with no heat, it's 7B. And of course, if you got heaters, and if doing that, you're able to get production a lot much earlier. So in here, these tomato plants are planted the first and second week of March. You usually like to plant them the last week of April, but this year trying to save a little money on propane and production, and with all the strawberries and the U-pick going on we got on the farm right now, it was really hectic to get planted early. We have so many plans. But anyways, we started a couple weeks earlier, and the production, we started picking tomatoes out of here. We've probably picked close to 100 pounds already out of this tunnel, and they're just now starting to come on. But enough about that. Let's get into fertilizer. Alrighty, so on the fertilizers, this is what I use for the fertilizer. So I use a Masterblend 4-18-38 fertilizer as my primary fertilizer, and that's my tomato fertilizer we use here on the farm. That's for all my tomatoes. And the reason I use 4-18-38 is it is the best tomato fertilizer that I found that works great on high tunnel tomatoes, and it works great for field tomatoes as well. Go ahead and jump into it. So right now, in this older, mature high tunnel, I'm putting around 14 pounds of fertilizer per week on these more mature plants. But starting off from just baby transplants up to about, I don't know, 2 to 3 foot tall, we go ahead and put 1 pound of fertilizer per day. And that's on 400 tomato plants. So for every tunnel, I am putting on 1 pound of Masterblend 4-18-38 fertilizer every single day in these high tunnels. Personally, I like to fertilize every other day. So every other day, I'm actually putting on 2 pounds. But in a whole week span, you want to put on 7 pounds of fertilizer per week of that 4-18-38 Masterblend fertilizer. And whenever it comes down to it, so each individual plant, so since we have 400 tomato plants in a high tunnel here, if you take 400 divided by 1 pound, so every day these tomato plants here need 0.002 pounds of fertilizer per plant per day. To make it easier, to make sense, is if you do by the week, so 1 tomato plant needs about 1/10 of a pound of fertilizer per week. So like I mentioned, for me to make it easier, I fertilize every other day through our fertilizer system here. Each individual tomato plant here per week gets 1/10 of a pound of fertilizer, and you can fertilize all your fertilizer at one time a week. But since we are spoon feeding these tomato plants, and we want to treat them like our babies here, just kind of grow, slowly progress and fertilize them. So if you have the time and energy to do it every day, it's more efficient to fertilize every day. But ideally, the way we do it on our farm is every other day. That's when I have the time and my scheduling between these 4 tunnels of fertilizer. I like to fertilize 2 every day to keep it going. And of course, due to your water supply, if you don't have enough pressure water to do all your tomatoes at once, then you can break it down into a third every 3 days or whatever you want. But we'll make sure on tomatoes, whenever you are running fertilizer and water, make sure you're very consistent in your schedule, just so your tomato plants can be used to it. If you fertilize every 3 days, then you go through and fertilize every day and water at the same time, then your tomato plants will be stressed and they'll start cracking. So be very consistent in your schedule. So, I mean, from day 1 to harvest, I fertilize and I water every other day here. So every other day when I'm fertilizing my tomato plants, I turn on the irrigation system, make sure the fertilizer, the lines are full of water first. I turn on that system, 2 pounds of fertilizer slowly get injected into the system, and then I run the water for an hour every other day. So ideally, 1 tomato plant needs 1 pint of water per day to survive. So in here, I would only need 400 pints, 400 divided by 16. I could tell you how many gallons of water per day. So if you do 400 divided by 16, that's how many gallons of water you're gonna need every day in your high tunnels. But I have to run it a little longer here, just so that we have a lot of clay soil, and the capillary action of the water is gonna move this way in the soil instead of draining down. So if you have a lot of sandy soils, your fertilizer and stuff is just drained down. If you have clay soils, due to capillary action, it's gonna move horizontally. So I like to cover up the entire beds here every single time I water and fertilize. On the magnesium sulfate and the calcium nitrate, I'm getting my numbers confused here and names here confusing my head. Anyways, calcium nitrate and magnesium sulfate, they require half of that. So half of your Masterblend, that's what you gotta inject. But make sure if you're mixing the concentrates in a bucket, you do them in separate buckets and inject them at separate times, just because if you don't do that, then the fertilizer, if you mix Masterblend, calcium nitrate, and magnesium sulfate in 1 bucket concentrate, you're going to gunk up. That's just a chemical reaction of the fertilizers, and then you won't be able to inject in your system. You got to throw the whole bucket away. So make sure, the way I do it is I run my Masterblend in first, then I run after the Masterblend run, I run a little bit of water, about 15 minutes, and then I run my calcium nitrate through from my calcium and the nitrogen portion of it, then the magnesium sulfate, so you will have even distribution of potassium through the entire plant there. So make sure you run at different intervals, different times. But if you're fertilizing 7 pounds of Masterblend fertilizer a week, you're gonna be running 3.5 pounds of calcium nitrate and 3.5 pounds of magnesium sulfate per week. So if you take that, then per day or per week, 1 tomato plant per week requires 1/10 of a pound of Masterblend, half a, what is that? 0.005 of a pound. What is that? I don't even know. Anyways, half of that 1/10 of a pound of calcium nitrate and magnesium sulfate. So that's per tomato plant. And then if you don't have, 4 tomato plants, just take that 1/10 of a pound, times it by however many plants you have, and divide that by every single day of your production cycle. So that is the tomato fertilizer system we use here on our farm. I know there's a lot of math and there's a little bit of confusion, so I'm going to summarize it here. So my 400 tomato plants here per week here, so 7 days, I am putting on 7 pounds of Masterblend 4-1838 fertilizer. I'm putting 3.5 pounds of calcium nitrate and 3.5 pounds of magnesium sulfate per week. Now, like I mentioned, you can break that down every day, every other day, but make sure in that 7 days, the matter of a week, you're putting on the right amount of fertilizer. So if you take 400 tomato plants divided by 7 pounds of fertilizer, every tomato plant gets 1/10 of a pound of fertilizer per week, and then you can distribute that through how many ever tomato plants you need. So take 1/10 of a pound, then you multiply that by however tomato plants you have, and that's how much fertilizer you're going to need for your tomatoes. Alrighty, y'all, this is going to be it for today. Just a quick little video here explaining how much you fertilize. Like I mentioned, if you guys want these fertilizers, go ahead and check the link down in the description box below, or go to farmerdresupply.com. That's where you're able to find all your fertilizer and gardening needs. I want to say thanks for watching up to this point. If you guys haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Smash that like button if you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget, hit that notification icon so you guys can be notified whenever I do upload a video. I want to say thanks for watching up to this point. Y'all have a good day. We will see you next time.